So talk to me about Pipe Dream, man. At what point when you were recording Pipe Dream were you like flute solo?
That's so funny. That's the most like commented and like pointed out thing that I've gotten in the last like few weeks from people.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the sort of funk that I built up in the track, but I was like, is a flute solo like a viable option here? Would this work? And then the more I stewed on it, I was like, this is the only option that I can think of.
Today on Loves Music, we have Marc Ramos of Morning Wars. Marc is a songwriter, killer musician, producer, engineer, and he's putting out a new album called Prospect Gallery. His two singles, New Prospect and Pipe Dream, are already available for streaming. New album to come out in October. I first discovered Marc when I heard his cover of Eleanor Rigby and I was blown away, and I had to hear the rest of the catalog. His story is incredible. Before we get started, I want to send some special love to Gail from Kansas City and Suki from California. You two have been flooding my news feed with positivity and really good vibes and love and support, and I wanted to thank you live here on the show. Up next, we have Marc Ramos from Morning Wars on Loves Music. Come on. Marc, thank you so much for joining me on Loves Music, man. This has been in the making for about 3 months, hasn't it?
This has been a couple weeks, 3 months, 2 months. It's been some time, dude. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, I'm stoked. Where do we even start, man? The new album sounds crazy. You got 2 singles out now.
Yes.
It's off of Prospect's Gallery. That's the name of the full project, correct?
Yeah, Prospect Gallery.
And then we have New Prospect and then Pipe Dream. Those are the 2 singles you're pushing?
Yeah. New Prospect came out about a month ago now, and then Pipe Dream just came out like last weekend. So it's pretty fresh and it's kind of like getting the momentum rolling and all that. So
I love it. It's like retro vibes, summer vibes, feel good music too. I mean, it's like I feel good when I listen to it.
Good.
So talk to me about Pipe Dream, man. At what point when you were recording Pipe Dream were you like flute solo?
That's so funny. That's the most like commented and like pointed out thing that I've gotten in the last like few weeks from people.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. I think I like to produce and write sort of simultaneously, right? So I was tracking and demoing Pipe Dream at the same time I was writing it. And I had gotten up to like maybe the second chorus. And, you know, like my sort of songs are almost copy and paste where like you've got an intro, and then you've got verse 1 in the chorus, and then verse 2 and the second chorus are sort of the same thing. And like I wanted to break up the vibe that I had sort of set up in the beginning. And the song is very fast paced. It's chaotic. It's moving. It's grooving. And it sort of had this like gradual buildup of all this tension. And then I'm just sitting there thinking of like where this could possibly lead. And I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the sort of funk that I built up in the track, but I was like, is a flute solo like a viable option here? Would this work? And then the more I stewed on it, I was like, this is the only option that I can think of.
Yeah. It doesn't
like
not need it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't play flute. That's not me on the record. A lot of the songs on this record, well, not all of the songs on this record are me singing, playing every single instrument, producing, whatever. It's all me except this one solo section.
Right.
I don't play flute and I don't know any flute players. And I was just sort of like reaching out to my circle, seeing if there was anybody that I knew that played like sort of jazz flute. And long story short, I got connected with this guy, Tristan Capel. Great saxophone and flutist from New York. I think he lives in LA now. He just came over to my apartment one day. We like tracked for like maybe half an hour. He just absolutely destroyed it. Mm-hmm. And then it just made its way on the record and I never looked back. And I was like, dude, this is it. This is absolutely it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man.
Well, you always have, I feel like a lot of your songs always have something that's unexpected. I wouldn't say it doesn't fit, but it's something that's like, oh, look at that. Like for instance, in New Prospect, right? There's this like 80s synth sound. The high synth sound in New Prospect is towards the beginning. Bing, ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
You know what part I'm talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm like, and that's the part you're listening to it. It's coming in. You're like, look at that. Look at that. Like an 80s, like, I didn't see that coming, you know? But you do that with a lot of your songs too. Yeah. Maybe that's one of the benefits of doing everything yourself. You don't have to get approval on anything. So you don't have like cynical bandmates. Like, I don't know.
There's no fighting over anything. The only fighting that's going on is in my head with myself.
Right. Yeah, man. So it seems like there was a little bit of a hiatus, right? You've been
Yeah.
pushing this project, you've been building buzz for it, and it's hot. It is the perfect complement to your previous EP, long way down.
Right.
You had about 5 songs, another
Right.
3 or 4 that were similar in style, but weren't
Right.
technically on a project. And this is just kind of more sophisticated instrumentation from that. But I actually love that EP. But there's a bit of a hiatus, right? Didn't it come out I
Right.
want to say 2020, 19?
2018 is when Long Way
18.
Down came out.
18. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it was so Morning Wars originally had started as a band in college with me and a few of my buddies. And we had put that EP together towards the end of our sort of college career. I guess it was our senior year. We had just graduated and we put that record out. And essentially, we had sort of all moved in different directions. And I ended up keeping the name, of course, getting their blessing and all that sort of thing. And from there on, the next year, I had moved out to New York City, and in a nutshell, I'd kind of gotten swept up with like transitioning from like being a college kid into like living in my now adult life. And the pandemic hit, and I was still trying to like get my footing, and all that stuff sort of put my music on the back burner. So there was like I had put out singles, one in 2019, one in 2020, and I think maybe one in between there. So there were some singles out in the beginning towards like the EP side of the timeline, but I just kind of got carried away with like life. And it's not that music wasn't important, and it's not that music wasn't like, I really wanted to like bring myself to start recording and writing and keep on this getting this momentum rolling that had started with the EP. But it just, I just, my energy just kept on getting sucked by like life, just life
Right.
in general, and just weird times that we were in like 5 years ago, and it's weird
Yeah.
times that we're in now
Right.
still. But yeah, so it was a bit of a hiatus there. But I've since found ways to like put my energy back into my music and sort of stay grounded in that way, and like bridge that gap, and hopefully not have as long of a hiatus of 5 years or 4 years or whatever again.
Yeah, man. Well, I think it's weird. And it's, if you can't give yourself fully over to the art,
Yeah.
maybe the hiatus is a good idea. I mean, what do I
Absolutely.
know? But it feels
Absolutely.
like, that's the move, right?
And that's kind of that was kind of the thing where it's like I didn't want to force like bring myself to the table to like make stuff where like I always hear in interviews where it's like, if you want to be a professional creative, you got to think like an athlete, right? And it's like, even if you don't want to show up, you got to show up. And like, and I agree with that to a degree, but if it's to the point where it's like detrimental, let's say like you're an athlete and you're injured and you keep on like practicing and competing and all that sort of stuff, like you're going to hurt yourself. Like
Right.
it's to your detriment,
Right.
rather than like, taking some time to recuperate and sort of rest up and recover and then go back into your craft. And so I agree 100%. It's like, if it doesn't feel like it's fitting, maybe it's better that you take a step back and wait until you can come back to the table fully ready and fully,
Right.
Yourself again.
Yeah, I'm with that. I want to talk to you a little bit about the sound, and then I want to get into a couple songs from the EP.
Yeah.
How responsible is the band for your sound versus like you? Like, did you guys collectively be like, all right, we're going to be like this alt rock band, but kind of do this
Right.
like 60s thing? Like, what is
Right.
like, who's responsible for that?
Well, there's two parts. One part is like Morning Wars when it used to be a band back in the day, and then the second part is Morning Wars as me by myself, and then Morning Wars as a live band as we are now. So to answer the first part, it's like when Morning Wars had originally started, it was me. Like I said, when Morning Wars had originally started, it was me and two other people, me and two of my best friends, Trevor and Noah, and we all three of us grew up listening to like The Killers and Cage the Elephant and sort of like indie alt rock bands from like the early 2000s all the way up until like 2016 when we were in college and stuff like that. So we had all geeked out on that stuff, and that was sort of like the base foundation of like our sound. And of course, our older influences would make their way in. Like me and Noah really love the Beatles, and me and Trevor really love like well, I don't know. We love a lot of stuff. But anyway, our older influences kind of like crept their way in.
Mhm.
So that's how it started. And that was sort of the base foundation. And then, as Morning Wars progressed to be just my solo project, I had found that, like, I grew up listening to a lot of like 80s rock. Like my stepdad loves classic rock. That's all he listened to growing up. And when he would like drive me to school in the radio or in the car, the radio would be on like the classic rock station all the time. So like a lot of my foundation of rock music is like definitely 80s, 70s, 60s, that sort of thing. And as Morning Wars progressed to just be like my solo project, I kind of like had a resurgence of love for classic rock. I started listening to a lot more classic rock, and it just kind of weaved its way subconsciously into like, all of the tracks on this new upcoming record. Whereas the first record that I put out, it was very much indie rock, 2000s, very like current and modern sound. And, I think my taste has evolved, not evolved, it's changed a little bit. I don't know how to explain it. It's like all of those influences are there, but now it's just what I really love is just like gritty guitars, just like fucking driven guitars from like the 70s and 80s, like really Thin Lizzy type of
Yeah.
guitar tones and stuff like that. So I would say it is partly influence of my friend group, partly influence of like what I grew up in or what I grew up listening to. And now it's funny, like I have an iteration of Morning Wars that's the live band in New York City that I play around with, and we pretty much play each record by the book. Like nobody's coming up with parts on their own; they're playing what's on the record. But even though they're playing what's on the record, they're still their own musicians, and they have their own tastes,
Right.
and they have their own sort of like flares, and their personal touches make their way to like the live iteration of Morning Wars, which has its own sound. But it's still rooted back in like my taste and my friend's taste and like what I grew up listening to and all that sort of stuff.
Well, that's where that magic happens in live music, right? That where the drummer's playing like slightly behind and the bassist is playing like in that pocket. Like the stuff you can't really duplicate in the studio. You have like those magic moments on stage, and that's where having the guys,
Yeah.
But it's funny too that you said that too. I was trying to explain to my brother like what you sound like. I was like, oh, he has like this soulful voice, but it's like the 20 teens alt rock stuff. And I was like, imagine if John Legend was the lead singer of Cage the Elephant. That's what they sound like.
Exactly, 100%. I would, yeah,
man. That's actually my favorite era of music, right?
Yeah.
So I had like a music renaissance around the teens. I started going to music festivals. And alternative rock in the 20 teens, people kind of compare it to the 90s, but it's different. It was like neo folk, neo blues, chamber pop, so you're getting these like influences, kind of like how like Seattle had like a grunge sound. Like, like Louisville had like an alt rock sound, and like Montreal had like an alt rock sound, Texas, So to me, a music nerd, everything you're saying makes sense.
For sure. Yeah. Well, it's funny too, because I feel like in like 2010 maybe, and I'm no music historian, but I feel like you're saying, like there were so many localized like sounds from different geographic locations, and I feel like post 2010 and moving up till now, especially now there's like, sure, there's local scenes that have their sound, but now it's so cross pollinated, and like sounds don't really come from like locations, they kind of come from like just corners of the internet or like corners of interest that like kind of mesh. It's cool to see how music has progressed that way. You know.
So getting back to the EP, the two songs that made me turn the corner, and I was like, it went from like, oh, this is really good music to like, oh, this is special. I listened to By the Side, right? And it has like the Western kind of tumbleweed, the tumbleweed horns or violins, and I'm like, okay, you have the lyrics. The grid is going dark. Vacant tourist spots and parks. They'd all risk it all just for a little fun. We're in a quarantine. Misinformation from the media. If there's a few words, something to hysteria. I'll be okay just for a day. I refuse to let it break me, but now I'm by the side of the railroad. And I'm in the story. And I'm like, what's he doing by the railroad? Spare no details. Tell me that story. I need to know what was going on then.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that it's funny that you brought that song up. I feel like I forget about that song. And the reason being is like By the Side is something that I wrote towards the very beginning of the pandemic, of the COVID-19 pandemic. I never write out of like sort of catharsis. I kind of just like, I like to write just based off of groove and like jamming and whatever comes out, comes out. But I'm never like, oh, I'm feeling something right now and I really got to get this out. But By the Side was a product of the pandemic. It was maybe a couple months after the world had sort of just shut down and everybody was in lockdown. I was in New York City at the time. And I'm not really easily spooked by like world events and stuff like that. But like when you're in the middle of Brooklyn, you can't go outside and people are just dying. It really shook me. And seeing like videos and pictures of like New York City just absolutely vacant was just such a weird thing that I've never seen. And it just like sort of sparked something in me. And I like, that was one point in my time in my life where I just had to sit down and I had to write and I had to get something out because I was just kind of like scared and like had no idea what to do, you know? So By the Side was just sort of like what was running through my head, sitting down in my room, just doom scrolling, seeing news coverage and headlines and pictures and all this stuff of just the world entering a weird, just desolate time, you know? Mm-hmm. But the reason I say I forget it is like, you know, now it's 2025 and things are so much better in that sense. Where like we're back to normal, quote unquote, right. At least as far as lockdown goes, you know. But I always forget about that song because that was just such a staple of time. Right. A staple of time. It was a very like specific portrait that like only like a lot of songs that I write can like kind of meld into any experience that you can sort of fit to it. But that for me is just one specific experience that doesn't have any sort of other backstory or explanation or any sort of thing like that, you know?
Okay. And you hadn't been in New York very long, right? You came from...
I came from Connecticut. I'm actually in Connecticut now in my childhood bedroom. But yeah, I hadn't been in New York at very long at that point. I think I had just moved, like, if lockdown happened in like March of 2019 or 2020. I'd been there for like,
yes, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, like maybe like 7 months, January, February, March. I'd been there maybe like less than 5 months, I want to say. Wow.
Yeah.
So I was in my first apartment in like maybe not the greatest area of Brooklyn. You know, I'm not going to name drop or whatever, but it was just a whole nother world. And, you know, that contributed a lot to that hiatus that I had sort of taken afterwards. Just sort of trying to get my footing because I just moved to New York City from Connecticut. The world had shut down and I'm in this new place that I've never lived in, only 5 months deep. And now I have to like figure out what's going on. What do I do? Right. Do I have to move? What's the next step? So.
Yeah. I mean, like if you're a native, it's stressful. Just imagine like you're just getting comfortable, getting your furniture in place, meeting people, and you're like, oh yeah, by the way, you can't come outside anymore. And everyone's dying.
Yeah, exactly, dude. It's great.
Like am I in a movie? What'd you say?
Are you from New York?
No, Philadelphia.
Oh, Philadelphia. Okay,
cool. Outside of Philadelphia, yeah.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the bandmates that you have now are all just kind of like New York musicians?
No, so actually, Morning Wars live as it is now has gone through like a couple of iterations. It's kind of like a rotating roster. However, my drummer, or the guy who plays drums for Morning Wars Live, is one of my best friends from back home. We grew up together, went to high school together, and he is a phenomenal drummer. He went to school for music. He went to the Frost School of Music at University of Miami, studying jazz drums. When we first started playing together in New York City, I was looking for other musicians, didn't really have much of a music network. And it ended up being that the first iteration of Morning Wars was like 90% all of his friends from University of Miami that he went to music school with. He was like, hey, my friend writes music. It's pretty cool. Like he needs a bassist, a guitarist. And his name's Xander. And he recruited his friend Mark Solomon, his friend Koa. And I think who else was it? There's Yvonne, Mark, Koa, and my friend Sawyer, also from back home, one of my best friends from high school. He played guitar for a little bit. So it ended up Morning Wars now is a combination of like my friends from back home and their friends and just people that I've connected with over the years. It's not like a set sort of live band. I wish it was. Yeah. But, you know, just with some people being like gigging musicians, you know, they have to take gigs here and there, and it's not really a band as it is like a sort of a group live, but
Sure.
that's where everybody comes from, man.
Cool, man. So take me back to early days, right? The first time or the earliest memory when you were like, okay, I don't just listen to music. I have something inside me that I have to get out.
I guess my first introduction to music, or like my first like sort of marker where I was like, oh, this is something that I'm very interested in, I guess, is like from church at a young age. My family's Catholic Christian, and Christian Catholic, and we went to a Hispanic church in Hartford, in Connecticut. And every Sunday I would go with my grandparents. I didn't really know Spanish growing up. Like, I was never taught Spanish. I understand it, but I can't really speak it. So, anyways, when I was young, and I'm going to a Hispanic church where the mass is in Spanish, I just sort of like tune out, because like the priest would be talking. I had no idea what he's talking about, and I'm just like 5 years old, and I'm just sitting there bored, you know. But every time there'd be a hymn from the choir, there's like a 3-piece choir or band, and there were 2 guitarists. Somebody played sort of percussion. They all sang, and every time there was a hymn, I'd be like, "Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
that's pretty sweet. Oh, whatever they're playing up there in like the balcony, that's
okay.
grooving, man. Like that's pretty sweet." And that sort of made like church tolerable for me as like a little kid. And going into school, I went to kindergarten in like a public school here in Wethersfield, and I was very fortunate enough to like all throughout like my like primary school years, the arts were super well funded in my town, and there was always music programs during the school day, but also like extracurriculars after school and stuff like that. So anyway, like in kindergarten, I was in a music class where we got to learn how to play instruments like xylophone and flute and piano, and sort of sing in a choir. And like that was my first formal sort of introduction into like music as far as education goes. And that's sort of where things sort of took off. Like I was always looking forward to music class. And once I was in music class, I would have a hard time getting out of music class. I'd always want to stay afterwards. And it kind of cannonballed from there. Like going into elementary school in 4th grade, I joined the band and the choir. And I did every single ensemble that I possibly could up until like middle school. I would, do all the extracurricular stuff after school. And in high school, I did a bunch of regional stuff, and I did plays and theater. It just sort of snowballed into this love that like, once it sparked when I was really young, I never really stopped to think about like, oh, do I love music? It was never a question of if I loved it. It was just always a part of me. Right. And it just always was a huge part of who I was growing up.
That is a weird thing about being a creative, right? I never felt like I just chose to be creative.
Right.
I just had to make something.
Exactly.
I wasn't really happy unless I was making something, drawing, painting, 100%. Trying to write raps in my little journal, or right. I wasn't happy unless I was making something, Yeah,
you never stop to think about it. It just is a part of you if that's really, your calling or what you love doing or something that really calls to you.
Mm-hmm. Today, what part of the music process do you think you like the most? Writing, recording, or performing?
I would say writing is probably my least favorite, which is so crazy. My 2 favorites, and they're like head to head with each other, are performing and producing. I get no greater thrill than just losing myself in a performance live, especially when you have such a killer band. Like, it's just something about being locked in together and just like giving yourselves completely to a performance is just like, there's no greater feeling than that for me. So I love performing live. But I also really love producing in the sense of just exploring different sounds and arrangements and like different sonic landscapes and just like messing around with instruments. Like, I love getting like nitty gritty with like guitar tones and like stupid effects and just like not nerdy stuff, but just stuff that shouldn't like overtake the creative process. I just love getting technical with stuff,
Okay.
So producing, I would say, goes head to head with performing.
Okay. This next question is a 2-parter, right?
Yeah.
What is something that you believe you do really well? And then what's one skill that you wish you could refine?
I feel that I can break things down very well, whether that's like songwriting or like rehearsing and identifying things that need to be fixed. Like, I feel like I do a good job identifying things and then breaking them down to then like work on them one by one until they're good. I'll use live rehearsing, for example. Like when we're getting ready for a show, and the instrumentation for our live band is drums, rhythm guitar, bass, lead guitar, keys, and vocals. And when you have so many things going on at once, you have to like really lock into like individual elements to like make sure that everything's going well and according to like the book and all that sort of thing. And sometimes it can be super overwhelming to like be like, all right, there's several things going on here that are not right, and why are they not right? What needs to be fixed in order for them to be right? I feel like it can like, if I can really just focus in and sort of lock myself down into pinpointing stuff, I feel like my brain has an easier time finding that stuff faster, and like has, I'm able to do that very quickly, which I feel like is maybe my strongest suit.
That's an important trait. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, definitely.
Be able to like monitor the meticulous details of because you got to remember, if your musicians are mic, that's another instrument.
Right.
Plus
For sure.
So now you're talking harmonies, you're talking people's parts, not just the instrumentation parts. So absolutely.
100%. And that's like a whole nother ball game. And if you could do it without if you could just do it in a room untreated or whatever, like if you could do it basically, then you're set to do it in like problematic areas, like venues that have stupid acoustics and stuff like that. But also like kind of like translates to, production or songwriting, where like, all right, I'm writing a song and I'm not very technical in terms of like music theory and stuff like that. So I just play a lot and write a lot by ear. But, I'm sure whether it's music or whether it's writing or any other medium, it's like you're doing something and something doesn't sit quite right. And you can't really figure out why. Like maybe you're playing a certain chord progression and you're like, oh, there's a note in here that doesn't really fit, or there's something that doesn't work about this form. Like I think it's really important to be able to like identify stuff, or like really like lock into yourself, identify things, and be able to like, work on things very sectioned off. That's such a vague explanation, but I think
but it makes sense. I mean, because as a lot of creatives are just like, let's just make stuff. Let's just make,
right.
Or you're against the gun. You're trying to hit a deadline. But like I told the album's going to be out in July. It's May. Or put it out. Song's done. It's like, well, no. Pause. That's wrong. Delete that.
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
And
then the second part to your question, I guess one thing that I wish I was better at. What I was going to say is like I wish I was better at just like coming up with things. I feel like I write very much based off of like interpolation and inspiration, and like I have to have a sort of idea in front of me that's already made to then riff off of something to make something, where like, and that sort of speaks to like what I was saying before, where like I don't really write from catharsis a lot. I write from just like sort of jamming and like just following my creativity in that sort of way. But that's not really the answer. The answer, I guess, is really just like I wish I was better at just like letting my sort of like own mental roadblocks like out of the way, and sort of getting out of my own way to let whatever I need to create out. So like I wish I was better at like not doubting my like creativity, or like getting rid of my self-doubt,
So that's what you think the block is? It's doubt? What do you think the actual root of the doubt is? Like there's no way you wake up in the morning and be like, I'm not a good musician. There's no way there's no way you finish doing a song and be like, this isn't a good song. Like what a good song is.
For sure.
Where do you think that doubt comes from?
I think it's like I don't think it's real. I don't think the self-doubt is real. Like I was saying, like I never wake up and I'm like, damn, I'm so trash. Like I wish I was better in this sort of way. It's more like, okay, I'm coming up with an idea, and the initial idea that it's more like perfectionism, where like the initial idea that I come up with is like, oh, this isn't good enough. Oh, I need to go in a certain direction. Okay, let me write something else. Man, this isn't good enough. This is not really good. It's more like I wish I was less of a perfectionist, because I feel like I do have such a specific taste where like I know what I'm going for, and I know what makes a good song, and this, that, whatever. And I feel like I get in the way myself a lot of the times because I'm such a perfectionist. So
right. Well, yeah. I mean, I don't think anybody is going to be a tougher critic than you. But also nobody cares more than you either.
100%. 100%.
Like these are my babies, Like
100%. Yeah. No,
that's
it's like you got to kill your darlings, and like in the sense of not being too precious about stuff, but also just like you just can't be too precious about anything.
I noticed, I try to trace, I mean, you don't have a ton of songs, so if you listen to, I think don't hold this again, maybe 10 or 11 songs total between the two new ones.
Yeah,
something like that. One of the common themes I see is a lot of travel. I'm moving out. I'm going home. I'm going here. He's coming home.
Right.
Is that has your life been transient that way, or are you pretty much been stable? Or
No, that's interesting. I mean, I honestly, I love hearing stuff like that because I never like reflect too deep on my own work. I always reflect deep on everybody else's work, but
sure,
never on my own, you know?
me too.
And it's funny that you mentioned that because like I've never thought about that up until now.
Mhm.
But I my life has been pretty stable in terms of living in a certain location. I grew up in Connecticut and I lived in Connecticut for the first like 18 years of my life here in a small town, growing up with my parents and my grandparents. I moved to Syracuse, New York, because I went to the university at Syracuse University. And I was there for about 4 years. I came back and I moved back to Connecticut for like a year or maybe 6 months to a year while I was looking for a job. And then I moved to New York City. And when I moved to New York City, I had moved because I had gotten a job at a travel website. So for the first year that I was working there was the pandemic and I
Ironic.
wasn't traveling at all. But then like after maybe around 2022 until last year, I was traveling a lot. And I was just moving in different parts of the world. But like a lot of the earlier stuff is before all that. So I don't know if that has any sort of telling of why those themes appear. I don't know. Yeah, no, that's interesting. I'm
Yeah.
not. Yeah, that's an
Yeah,
interesting.
your music has a nice blend of like being fun and also emotional. And I was like, no,
Yeah,
it does because it reminds me of airports. Now, when you're in an airport,
yeah,
you're a little bit emotional for some reason. At least I
yeah,
do.
for sure. Yeah, definitely.
I either get agitated or I get emotional when I'm just like sitting in an airport.
Yeah,
Yeah,
same, dude.
yeah,
That's so funny.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, man. What is the best compliment that someone has ever paid you?
I don't know if there's one in specific, but the ones that I'm always moved by are when I can tell somebody's genuinely been moved by something that I've made, or like somebody's gotten completely lost in, a song or a performance, or like it's always when it's like really elevated somebody that I'm always like, wow, that's incredible. I'm so glad that something that I've done can move you in that sort of way. Like, I had a show a couple weeks ago, and one of my friends is a really talented tattoo artist. And because he's a talented tattoo artist, he's working around the clock and he's just booked all the time. And tattooing is very long and like
Yeah.
just arduous and stuff like that. And he was just saying like, man, this week has been the longest week of my life. I had so many sessions and I was just like really like brought down. And then I came out to the show and like just seeing you up there like just got me like completely liberated, and like seeing you have a good time and completely loose up there and just like letting it all out like allowed me to let it all out, and it was a really fun time. And I was like, damn dude, like I'm so glad that you had that experience. Like the fact that you've been able to like go from one state of being to just like completely out
Yeah,
and loose and
man.
having a fun time, like that's great, man.
That's what we're selling. I mean, we write songs and sell drinks and tickets and whatever,
Yeah,
but like that's what it like. We sell the relief. You know what
the
I mean? We
relief,
sell
man. The
yeah.
relief,
Yeah,
yeah.
right. Kind of like
So,
athletes, it's like
yeah.
yeah, like you watch football, but what you're selling is like a reprieve for 4 hours while the
A
game's on.
hundred percent.
You know
You're
what I mean?
selling an experience, dude. You're just selling like I don't even want to say selling. You're like, well, we are selling because it's a
Providing, yeah,
business, right? But
yeah,
like you're providing an experience to just like completely get lost in. And one thing for me that's big is like, and whether it's performing in the studio or performing live is like presence, right? It's just like complete, just being there. And I feel like a lot of what I do is to try and get into that moment of just like being there, and like, that's what you're giving to other people is the experience of like sitting down and listening to a record and being in that record, or being in a venue and just completely being there, like only being there. Like, yeah, that's really important.
yeah. Well, I think that's part of the discipline of music too, right? Making sure you're rehearsed, making sure that the technical aspects of your show are such that you can be on autopilot with like your motor skills and your
Yeah.
singing, and then you can just focus on connecting. At least that's my theory of it.
200%.
Yeah. And
No,
I'm
I
like,
agree, man.
and the hypocrisy of that statement is I was never like rehearsed enough. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
so for me, performing was more anxiety than it was,
Sure,
fun,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah, right.
So, no, but yeah, but it is fun. Like once you get like the
Yeah.
first song jitters out.
Oh yeah, then you're smooth,
Yeah.
man. You're set.
All right, man. So another two-parter.
Yeah.
What does success look like for you in the short term, say the next like 3 months, and then in the long term, say the next, say 3 years?
In the short term, I have been sitting on a record for about maybe 2 to 3 years. I wrote a record like several years ago, piecemealed it together a little bit by little bit, and then it was sitting on a shelf for like 2 years until I felt that I could give it like its due diligence of like promotion and playing it live and all that sort of stuff. And the time has passed and I've been able to put it out. And I started putting out a couple singles, and the record's coming out, I think 2 weeks from now. The record's coming out in October.
Sweet.
And, you know, for me, the reason I am putting out the record now is because I sort of want to jumpstart a music career or a career in music as like a professional artist or a professional musician or performer or what have you. And success for me in like the next 3 months looks like, at its very base level, putting the record out, like, period, is success, is like a triumph, right? For me, just given the fact that it's been so long since I put music out and since I've been able to like fully commit myself to music. So like at its base level, success looks like putting out a record. And then on top of that, anything additional is just icing on the cake. And what that would be is like expanding my team. I don't know if I would want a record deal. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. I'm still grappling with that, but at least having the facilities of what come with a record deal, right? Which would be like support with live shows and booking and touring and that sort of thing. Support with like distribution, sort of like expanding operations to just me, beyond just me working on my sort of music. So that's success in the next 3 months is sort of garnering a team. And in the next 3 years, I guess, like, I think it looks like putting out more music more consistently, sort of like improving my craft. I think I've had like such a great leap forward in terms of like my musicality and my production skills and my writing skills and my performance skills from the last record to this record. And success looks like, you know, tripling that tenfold with each record that I put out, just really improving myself to sort of, you know, be the best iteration of my musical creative self that I could be. And I think anything else beyond that just comes from that, right? Like you could say like, oh yeah, I want to be playing MSG and then I want to play like Wembley and then I want to play like Glastonbury, whatever. But like all that comes because you work on your craft and you get really good and you expand your team and you expand your reach. So like that is so far beyond what I really want, you know?
Absolutely. They were talking about business, but I think it applies to music. If you want to have a huge business, right? Beyond the logistics, you think about what traits does a big business have to have, and then you model those traits in the business while it's small. Otherwise, you'll never be big, right? And I think the same rings true for music, right? If you want to be a huge artist, yes, you have to be talented. There's also like soft skill traits that you need as well, you know, that big artists have that you have to start instilling when you're a younger artist.
100%. 100%.
What are some of those traits you feel that are evident within you or with people of your team that have really helped to propel you in this period of your growth?
I think a lot of it, or the sort of core of it, where everything else sort of stems from, is 100% like resilience and sort of just like dedication and discipline, like sort of those harder skills that are like very easy to get bogged down by and very easy to overlook, you know? I think people sort of often give too much credit to talent and too much credit to like luck and this sort of thing. And it's so cliche to be like, nah, you got to be really hardworking, but you do have to have the backbone and sort of like that steadfast sort of like readiness and ability to just take on whatever and keep on taking whatever comes your way, no matter how hard it gets. Otherwise, how could you possibly get a million miles down the road? How can you possibly walk a million miles if you can't like just bring yourself to be disciplined that way, you know?
Yeah, you have a really good you have a really good mind about that too. And I think that your affinity for like gradual, substantial growth versus like a shortcut is going to serve you so well down the road. I mean, one of the main reasons that businesses fail is because of overfunding. Because what happens is you build to $1,000. And on that road to, I'm just using round numbers. You build to $1,000, you know, and along that road to $1,000, you learned along that road like how to handle those issues. And then someone says, "Hey, I'm going to give your $1,000 business $10,000 right away," right? And now you have $10,000 problems, but you didn't do all that growth between 1 and 10 to get there, you know. So you're not, so that idea of like building that foundation, that intimacy at scale, connecting on smaller levels, smashing these smaller venues, and building those relationships. That's all like the framework for what's going to be a freaking monster career.
Absolutely. No, yeah. I mean, like two things come to mind. One, it's like, I wouldn't have it any other way. Like, yes, it would be so great to like tomorrow wake up and like be an overnight success and like have whatever. But like you're saying, I wouldn't have those skills that I would have learned on the way. And then I would be stuck up there like, well, what do I do now? Like, I have no idea how to perform in a stadium, or I have no idea how to, whatever comes with that. You don't know what you're doing. And like the other thought that I had is like, if you just won the lotto and you're like not financially literate,
right.
like then you just go and spend all your money and then you're broke. Like you're like, oh well, of course $1 million doesn't last. I didn't know how to spend $1 million.
Yeah, right. And now your happiness baseline is all the way up here, so you can make your own salary. Exactly. You're like, all this stuff sucks. I was a millionaire a week ago.
Exactly. No, that's not sustainable, I guess.
Right. So with you growing, right? Eventually, you're going to delegate certain tasks, management, maybe. I don't know who you'd have on your staff, but at some point in the time comes and you had to relinquish some of those like production duties because these songs have been so close and so intimate with you playing all these instruments. Would you have an issue or be apprehensive delegating to session guys, bringing in a big time producer, maybe even, dare I say, a songwriter,
Oh, no. I mean, I if you were to ask me like 3 years ago, I'd be like, I'm not. If you were to ask me like 10 years ago, I'd be like, I'm never hitting a studio. Why would I ever go to a studio and like work with these people if I could just do it in my bedroom on whatever? But, I've grown or have learned so much. Actually, to illustrate this, let me tell you a story. So like, I hated the Beatles up until like, or I shouldn't say hate. Hate's a weird word.
Yeah.
But I never really liked the Beatles until like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and then I listened to them and I was like, oh my God, this is actually crazy. This is a crazy band. Like, I love the Beatles. They're my favorite band of all time. And with that came a lot of like me diving into the lore of like their production and like their studio time and stuff like that. And with that came like a whole love for studio techniques and learning about production and learning about engineering and like all that sort of thing. And I've gone from just like doing things on my own to realizing how much of like in art and how much of like a collaboration music can be or has the potential to be. Like, yes, you can do music on your own. You can produce records in your bedroom by yourself and it could be great. You could create some great stuff. But there is also such a magic to like working with other people that have different flavors of collaboration and skills and palettes and this sort of thing. So it's like, if you were to ask me 5 years ago, I'd say I'm never working with anybody. But now I realize the importance of sometimes letting people into certain parts of your creativity. Like other parts, people are different, but like, I don't know if I would have, I've written with other people in the past, and I sometimes have a difficult time writing with other people because I have such a specific vision and taste and cadence of writing that like songwriting for me is sort of sacred in that way. But like production, like I welcome different palettes and different like walks of life in terms of like what other people listen to and like I think that can add a lot. And I've also gotten to the point where like I'm sort of sick of mixing my own records because I'm again such a perfectionist that I'll sit in my room and like mix for hours and hours and hours and go through versions and versions of versions, and I'm like, I need to give this to somebody else to like take and sort of trust in somebody to work on that. There's only 1 or 2 things that I would safeguard, I guess, giving away and working with other people on. But, I've grown to be sort of open to collaboration and to the magic that could bring to any sort of creation,
Interesting. Do you have like a dream collaborator or a dream feature in mind? You're like, if I get it big, they're getting on a track with me.
Maybe not now. If it were like 10 years ago, I'd be like, damn, it'd be sick to do something with Paul McCartney. Like Dominic Fike did like, Paul McCartney did a record a couple of years ago, and then Dominic Fike and like a bunch of people like did interpolations of that song. I was like, if that were me, I could simply just go away forever and be happy. Yeah. Like I would not need to fucking do anything else.
I love that album. The song with Phoebe Bridgers on that album is my favorite.
Yes, one. Dude. Yeah. Well, it was McCartney 3. Yeah. So like, it's like So but that's a cheap. Let me think of a better one because that's just like
yeah. That's like if you ask me like who's your dream podcast guest, I'm like there's Paul McCartney and then I'll
right. Exactly. Yeah, it's like doesn't count.
Like Paul McCartney, Dave Grohl, and then a bunch of dudes.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know. I guess one collab that I would love, and just because it informed a lot of like my early music and a lot of my early taste for modern music, would be Brandon Flowers from The Killers, because The Killers like are just such a seminal band for like anybody that is my age or like, you know, what am I, a millennial? Gen, I don't even know what the fuck I am.
How old are you? I'm like right on the cusp of like millennial. And
I'm 29.
Oh, okay. God bless you.
Yeah. So like I'm on like the younger side of that. But like anybody who grew up in that era, like
speaking of The Killers, man, I didn't know Hot Fuss is like 20 years old.
Dude, right?
Like, where did 20 years go? Yeah.
It flew by like nothing. I remember listening to Hot Fuss on like my mom's iPod Nano. Like crazy, dude. Crazy.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah.
So this next question is a two-parter, right? Give me something that you are just very proud of, whether it's a performance, a song, a moment, and then give me something that you're like, I wish I could have taken that one back.
Something that I'm really proud of, and like call it a shameless, but it's not even a shameless plug. I legitimately am really proud of this record that I'm about to put out. It's a very personal. The record's called Prospect Gallery,
right?
And it's 8 songs that I've written over the last like maybe 5 years, or between like 2018 and 2022. And I don't know, I just see so much growth between the first record that I put out and this record that I'm just like, wow, like I really did that, dude. Like I really went there, and I really went there in every facet, like personally, in terms of like writing songs and being vulnerable in that way. But also in terms of like production, like I really spent a lot of time just like finding what I really vibe with, what I really like love in terms of musical taste and production and style and that sort of thing, and found ways to incorporate that into my music making process and my production process. And I did everything by myself. Like I did everything completely on my own, writing, recording, mixing, mastering, all this promotion, all this marketing and stuff like that. And it's like, just looking back at where I was a few years ago to now, it's just like I'm very proud of. It's weird. Like I don't want to say like I'm very proud of myself, like pat on the shoulder kind of thing, but like I'm just very proud of like the growth that I went through and like the things that I pushed myself on to get a record in the sort of like period of my career, I guess I would say that I'm at now. You know,
grant yourself the grace to own it, dude.
For sure, yeah.
Albums are hard. There's a very small minority of people that can write a song, B, write a whole album, and then produce it, put it out, and it be as good as you. I mean, we're talking a handful of people on the planet that are putting out music that well by themselves.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate
it. If you're not going to brag about it, I will.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah, man. All right, so give me something that you wish you could have back. Like,
that's right. Give
me that day back again to do that over.
I feel bad saying this because they're so dear to me. And I'm saying this with the notion that I actually wouldn't change it forever, but I always have the thought, like, the first 2 songs that Morning Wars put out, it's not that they're bad. They're not bad in any way, but they're just so, like, it's like you look at a picture of yourself from, like, middle school, and you're like, gosh, like, so, like, why'd you wear that? Why'd you wear those, like, stupid, like, whatever?
That's so
it's
normal.
Like, I would never change them for the world, but I always look back being like, all right, these are very like first draft sort of songs, you know? So
that's so fun. I like downplay all my early stuff. When somebody's like, I want to check out your stuff, I'm like, please, last 2 albums.
Right.
If some of that early first and second album didn't really age well. So
those are always like serve a special place in my heart, you know, like the first 2 songs ever.
Yeah, man. So, well, selfishly, I have to ask, man, what are the chances, man? Can we expect a gig in Philadelphia in 2025?
I think you very well can, man. I think you very well can. I am, we've only played shows in New York over the last couple of years. And now that this record's coming out, like I really want to take it out. I mean, we've been playing for about, I want to say 2 years now, on and off, and there was a little bit of time in between, but for about 2 years, we've been playing and getting really solid as a band, really locked into each other and finding out like how to bring the Morning Wars material to life in a live setting. And with the new record, like and with us playing for so long, I just like want to take it to other places on the East Coast. So I'm trying to put together like a little tour for a couple of regions. I'm trying to go to Philly, DC, Boston, New York, obviously, and then here in Hartford. And we'll see if all of those dates come together. But yeah, I'm hoping to get to Philly. Philly's looking pretty good out of all of them. Also, Hartford's looking pretty good out of all of them. But we'll see. Oh, fingers crossed.
Man, if there's anything that we can do to support you, man, please.
Absolutely,
you got the
man.
number, man. Let's put it
No,
together.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, man. If the 19-year-old Marc Ramos is talking to the 29-year-old Marc Ramos, and he's like, "Hey, man, I don't know, man. This music thing is tough."
Yeah.
What would you tell him with the 10 years of experience and everything you've been through?
Oh man, I'd just be like, dude, everything that you ever like conceived of, like every big dream or every like big stepping stone, like it happened. So why can't anything else happen? Like just keep on thinking it, keep on finding ways to make it happen, and it will happen because it has. You know, like I remember like when I think I was a little bit older than 19, but when I graduated college, yeah, I was like 21. But when I graduated college, I had no right in my mind thinking like, oh yeah, I'm gonna move to New York and I'm gonna have a job. Like I had no idea how I would even get to New York, but I just knew I wanted to move to the city and like, you know, get my foot in the door to do other things. But I had no right because I had no job experience, no internship experience, whatever, nothing that would get my foot in the door. And I don't know, I just like found every possible way to hit up any single person or try and look for any opportunity to like try and do that. So it's like if you have an idea in your head and you have even the slightest inclination of how to get there, like follow it and see where that goes, because you can make it happen, you know.
Yeah. That reminds me, I just heard a quote the other day and I loved it. I want to quote the right person. I believe it was Layla Hormozy. Don't beat me up in the comments if I'm wrong. I believe it. That's who it is. And it said, "Fear is a mile wide, but an inch deep." So it looks like everything is like this vast, difficult thing. And then you start working your way through it and you're like, oh.
Yeah, right.
You know?
No,
and
that's true, man.
All those negative things that you you used to talk yourself out of it, they start dispelling with action.
Yeah.
Indecision is death. You got to start.
With action, for sure. Yeah. Dude, I had that thought today. I was like, I'm home for a couple days. I was just on a camping trip like this weekend with some friends, and I stopped home just to visit my family. And like, I have none of my stuff with me. Usually, I have my laptop to like work on music stuff and all that, but I have none of my stuff on me. And the record's coming out in a couple weeks, and I'm like, I have 2 weeks where I still have to like plan a bunch of promotion and stuff like that. And I have some stuff, but like I like to keep things flexible. But I was like, all day just having this like pit in my stomach being like, I know I have so much stuff that I need to do, and like I don't know how I'm gonna whatever. But then I went on a walk and I started thinking about stuff, and I was like, wait a minute, it's not as overwhelming as I thought. Like just put pen to paper, and then all of a sudden you only have a couple things where you thought you had like a million, you know? Like yeah, for sure. Indecision. I like that quote though. I've never heard that quote. That was great.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, look, if there's a million ways to get a hold of us nowadays, right? Yeah, but if there was only one way to support you, there's more than one. But if there was only one, somebody listen to this podcast and be like, I like Morning Wars, man. I want to support them. What's the single best way to support you?
Oh man, you know, I really hate to say it, and it's probably because I haven't done the work to not make it this one way. Yeah. But I would say Instagram. Instagram just because it's such a catch-all and a director of different ways, and you know, of course, like big data and big social media and all that shit or whatever. But no, I would say Instagram. Just that way you can, you know, keep up with all things Morning Wars and find out when there's a show or there's a record or, you know, maybe there's a piece of content that you like and can bring you a little smile or something. Instagram.
Absolutely, man. Well, I got to tell you, man, you are building a little following here in Philadelphia. I'm telling everybody that's willing to listen, the feedback I'm getting from like my circle who are music nerds like me are like, what is this? Like who is this dude? And I'm like, I don't know, maybe he'll come on my show.
Absolutely.
So here we are, man. So no, seriously, man, you got a little family here in Philadelphia, man.
Oh yeah, thank you so much, man.
Seriously, man. Now that we've met, it makes me love you even more, man. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for making time to connect with me today, man.
Of course, dude. Thank you for reaching out, dog.
Seriously, man.
Likewise,
thank
man.
you so much. Yeah, man. Hey, and the rest of you, thanks for joining us here on Love Music. See you next Thursday. Take care of yourselves.